The mission begins. The space station floated in the cold black sky, silent and alone. It orbited a dying red planet. Its surface cracked like old glass. Inside the station's metal halls, the air smelled of machine oil and recycled oxygen, Captain. Ryan Hawley walked down the corridor, his boots echoing on the steel floor. His orders were simple on paper: escort an alien girl to a human base. Keep her alive and avoid trouble. But in deep space, nothing was ever simple. Ryan stopped outside a thick security door. A guard in dark armor stepped aside and pressed a code into the panel. The door slid open with a hiss. Inside, the room was small and dim, the lights humming softly, and in the center sat the girl. Subject 14. She was young, maybe 17 in human years, with pale silver skin that caught the light like metal. Dust, her hair was white as frost, falling to her shoulders, but her eyes were the brightest thing in the room, glowing blue like frozen fire, and in those eyes was nothing but hate. Ryan took one step forward, and she rose from her seat. "Stay away from me, human," she said, her voice cold and sharp. Her accent twisted the words, but he understood perfectly. He kept his face calm. "I'm here to take you to safety. I do not need your safety," she snapped, folding her arms. Her gaze was full of anger, as if he had already done her some great harm. Ryan didn't argue. There was no point, not yet. He glanced at the guard, who handed him a small black case. Inside was a datapad with her transfer orders. Everything about her mission was locked under Class Omega clearance. That meant high-level secrets. Ryan had been on dangerous assignments before, but this felt different. The kind of job where one mistake could start a war. "Let's move," he said, turning toward the door. She didn't follow. Instead, she stood still, her chin raised like a queen refusing to walk. "You will not give me orders," she said. Ryan sighed. "You can walk or I can carry you, but either way, we're leaving." Her eyes narrowed, but she stepped forward, every movement sharp and slow, as if each step was a battle she refused to lose. They were halfway down the hall when the first alarm went off. A deep, wailing siren that shook the air. Red warning lights flashed across the walls. Ryan's come. Link buzzed in his ear. "Captain Heil, unidentified ships are approaching fast. They're armed." His stomach tightened. He grabbed the girl's arm, pulling her into a run. The station speakers crackled with an automated voice. "Security breach detected. All personnel to emergency stations." The floor trembled under their boots. Somewhere far away, metal screamed as something exploded. The girl looked at him with sudden suspicion. "You brought them here," she accused. Ryan didn't waste breath arguing. "Keep moving." They turned a corner and almost ran into a group of crew members rushing in the opposite direction. One of them shouted, "They're boarding on Deck 3. They're here for someone." Ryan didn't need to guess who by the time they reached the docking bay. The sound of battle was echoing through the station. Distant gunfire, the thud of boots on metal, the hiss of airlocks breaking. Ryan keyed in the launch code for his ship, the Valkyrie. The docking clamps released with a groan. Steam hissing from the seals. The girl stopped at the edge of the ramp, glaring at him. "You should let them take me," she said quietly. Ryan turned, his eyes hard. "Not happening." She looked at him for a long second, something unreadable passing over her face. Then she walked aboard, her head high. The moment Ryan sealed the hatch, a shockwave hit the docking bay. A fireball roared through the hangar behind them, throwing shadows across the walls. The Valkyrie lifted off, its engines screaming. Through the viewport, Ryan saw the station tearing apart under enemy fire. Black triangular ships swarmed around it, their weapons flashing like white lightning. He pushed the throttle forward, engines burning blue as they shot away from the wreck. But on his radar, more enemy ships broke formation and turned to follow. The girl stood beside him, her hands gripping the console. "They will never stop," she said, her voice calm, but her eyes were afraid now. Ryan kept his gaze on the stars ahead. "Then we won't stop either," he said. and the Valkyrie leapt into the dark. The girl who refused to trust, the Valkyrie sliced through the black ocean of space, stars blurred into white lines as the ship entered light speed. But inside the cockpit, the air was tense and heavy. Ryan kept one hand on the controls, eyes locked on the navigation screen. The girl sat in the co-pilot's seat, her arms folded tight, her gaze fixed on nothing. The blue glow of her eyes reflected in the glass. She looked like she was somewhere else, somewhere far away. "You're awfully quiet," Ryan said, breaking the silence. No answer. He tried again. "Look, I know you didn't ask for me to be here, but... and why are you?" She cut in, her voice sharp. Ryan's jaw tightened. "Because your people asked mine, and someone has to make sure you get to safety." Her lips twisted into a bitter smile. "Safety? You think there is safety for me? For anyone? The way?" She said it made Ryan pause. There was no fear in her tone, only certainty. The ship's alarm chirped. Ryan checked the scanner, 3 blips chasing hard. "They followed us through the jump," he muttered. The girl's head turned, her eyes narrowing. "Then they will catch us." "Not if I can help it," Ryan replied, adjusting course. The pursuers shifted to match his every move. Whoever they were, they knew what they were doing. Ryan flipped a switch, and the ship dove into a narrow asteroid belt. Chunks of rock the size of buildings tumbled around them. The hull shuddered as debris scraped the sides. The girl didn't flinch, didn't even blink. Instead, she leaned forward, studying the controls. "You fly well." "For a human," she said. Ryan gave a short laugh. "You've got a strange way of saying thank you." "I did not thank you," she replied flatly. One of the enemy ships clipped an asteroid and spun out, vanishing in a burst of fire. The other 2 kept coming, weaving through the deadly maze with unnatural precision. Ryan slammed the throttle, heart pounding. He caught her watching him again, not with hate this time, but with something else, calculation. "Why do they want you?" he asked, eyes still on the screen. She didn't answer right away. Finally she said, "If they catch me, it will not just be me who dies." Before he could ask what she meant, a bright red warning filled the console. "Incoming missile lock." The Valkyrie lurched as Ryan pulled a hard roll to the right. The missile missed by meters, exploding against an asteroid in a blinding flash. Shards of rock rained down on their ship, rattling against the hull. Ryan's cum crackled with static. Then a deep, distorted voice came through. "Human. Give her to us, and you will live." Ryan glanced at the girl. She was staring at the cum speaker with cold fury. "I told you," she said softly. "They will never stop." Ryan's grip on the controls tightened. "Then we'll make them wish they had," he replied. The Valkyrie surged forward, vanishing deeper into the asteroid field. A chase across the stars. The asteroid belt thinned, opening into empty space. Ryan pushed the Valkyrie's engines to full, the stars stretching into white lines again. The danger was behind them, at least for now, but Ryan knew the quiet in space never lasted. He glanced at the scanner, half expecting to see enemy ships again. Nothing, just the endless black. The girl sat in the co-pilot seat, staring at the starfield. Her hands rested on her knees, her posture still and controlled. Ryan noticed she hadn't asked where they were going. She hadn't asked anything. "Not curious where I'm taking you?" he asked. Her eyes didn't move from the window. "It doesn't matter," Ryan frowned. "It matters to me." She turned to him slowly, her glowing blue gaze meeting his. "I already know you will fail," she said. Her voice was calm, almost sad. Before Ryan could reply, the ship's console beeped, faint at first, then faster. He checked the system. There was a second signal coming from inside the ship. It wasn't his transmitter, and it wasn't hers. At least not on purpose. Someone had hidden a beacon aboard the Valkyrie. He spun his chair toward her. "You have something on you, a tracker." Her eyebrows lowered in confusion. Then she shook her head. "No, The ship jolted violently, cutting her off. On the scanner, 3 more ships appeared, much closer than before, They hadn't followed through hyperspace. They'd waited ahead of them. Ryan cursed and threw the Valkyrie into a hard dive. The girl gripped the seat as the stars wheeled around them. One of the enemy ships fired, the blast tearing past the left wing. The hull shuddered, lights flickering. "They're hurting us," Ryan muttered. The girl's voice was cold. "Then they know where you're going." That was when Ryan realized the worst part. Their navigation system had been locked onto a single course, one he hadn't set. The tracker wasn't just giving away their location, it was flying them straight into a trap. He killed the autopilot and switched to manual controls. The ship groaned under the sudden change, the engines pushing against the false course. But the enemies adjusted instantly, tightening the net around them. "They'll box us in," Ryan said under his breath. The girl studied the scanner, her face unreadable. "I can get us out," she said quietly. Ryan shot her a look. You can't even." "I can," she interrupted. "But you have to trust me." He hesitated. So far, she had done nothing but glare at him and tell him he'd fail. But the way she spoke now, it wasn't arrogance, it was certainty. Ryan took a deep breath. "Fine. What do you need?" Her answer was strange. "Open the outer cargo bay doors." Ryan blinked. "That's vacuum." "Yes," she said, her voice like steel. "And I can survive it longer than they can." He stared at her, searching for a hint of a joke. There was none. Her glowing eyes met his with unshaken calm. "Do it," she said. Ryan's fingers hovered over the controls. If she was lying, he'd be killing her. If she was telling the truth, he had no idea what she planned. But the enemy ships were closing in. Ryan's pulse pounded in his ears. Secrets in the dark. The warning lights flashed red as the cargo bay doors began to open. Air hissed out into the black void, pulling loose objects toward the stars. Ryan fought the ship's controls, keeping it steady as the vacuum howled behind them. The girl unstrapped herself from the co-pilot seat and walked toward the open bay. Her silver hair whipped around her face, her glowing eyes fixed on the enemy ships closing in. Ryan shouted over the roar, "You step out there, you're gone." She didn't answer. Instead, she placed her hand against the metal frame. And something strange happened. The air around her shimmered, bending light like heat rising from a desert road. It was as if the space itself was wrapping around her. Ryan froze, his hands gripping the controls. He had seen alien tech before, but nothing like this. She turned her head slightly, her voice calm in the chaos. "Keep the ship steady for 20 seconds. Before he could argue, she stepped into the void. Her feet left the floor, and she drifted out into open space. No suit, no tether, nothing but the strange ripple surrounding her. The enemy ships drew closer, their weapons glowing. Ryan's instinct screamed to close the doors, to pull her back in, but something told him to wait. The girl raised her hands, and the ripple around her spread outward like a silent wave. The nearest enemy ship's lights flickered, its engines coughing like a dying machine. Then, without a sound, its entire hull froze solid. In seconds, it shattered into glittering shards that floated away like snow. Ryan stared, his breath caught in his throat. The second ship tried to veer away, but the ripple reached it too. Its weapons went dark, its body spinning helplessly into the void. She floated there for a moment, her eyes closed, the ripple fading around her. Then she drifted back toward the cargo bay. Ryan hit the door controls, the metal seals locking shut with a heavy clang. The oxygen hissed back into the room. She stepped onto the deck like nothing had happened, her breathing calm and even. Ryan stared at her. "What was that?" She met his eyes, her voice quiet but firm. "You call it power," she said. "My people call it a curse." He didn't know what to say. Before he could speak, the ship's console beeped. The third enemy ship was still out there, and it had just sent a signal into the dark. The girl's gaze hardened. "They know where we are now," she said, "and more will come." And then he pressed the switch, *. The trail in space, The Valkyrie limped through space. Its engine strained from the chase. The third enemy ship had vanished from radar. But Ryan knew it wasn't gone. It was waiting, somewhere, watching. Fuel was running low, and the damage. Alarms on the console were a constant reminder that they couldn't keep flying forever. "We need repairs," Ryan said, his eyes scanning the nav charts. The girl didn't answer, but he saw her glance toward a small outpost blinking on the screen. It was a human-controlled station, one Ryan knew well, Outpost 9. A trade hub on the edge of nowhere. He had friends there. People who owed him favors. If anywhere was safe, it would be there. Hours later, the Valkyrie docked. The airlock opened with a hiss, and Ryan stepped into the familiar metal corridors. The smell of oil and fried synth meat filled the air. A tall man in a dark jacket walked up, smiling. "Ryan Halley, I thought you were dead," the man said, clapping him on the shoulder. "Kane," Ryan greeted. "Still running this place?" "Still trying to keep it from falling apart," Kane replied with a laugh. But his eyes flicked to the girl beside Ryan, and the smile didn't reach his face. They followed Kane into his private office. The lights were dim, the hum of old machinery filling the silence. Ryan explained their situation, the attack, the pursuit, the need for repairs. Kane listened, leaning back in his chair. When Ryan finished, Kane nodded slowly. "You'll get your repairs. And maybe I can find a way to hide her," Kane said, nodding toward the girl. Ryan exhaled, relieved, appreciated. But the girl's eyes stayed fixed on Kane, her jaw tight. When they stepped back into the corridor, she spoke in a low voice. "Your friend smells like the ones who chased us," Ryan frowned. "Smells?" She nodded. "A trace in the air, their weapons leave it." Ryan's stomach sank. Kane had been one of his oldest allies in the outer systems. If she was right, then this safe station was already compromised. They returned to the docking bay to find two mechanics working on the Valkyrie. Ryan noticed they were wearing armored boots, the kind soldiers used. Not engineers. He moved closer, and one of the men subtly touched his ear, speaking into a hidden Ryan's hand went to his blaster. The girl's voice was barely above a whisper. "They're stalling us." Before Ryan could react, the docking bay doors slammed shut, locking them inside. Overhead, a voice came through the station speakers. Kane's voice. "Sorry, Ryan. There's a bounty on her that's worth more than this station. More than you. More than everything." Ryan's blood ran cold. The hiss of approaching footsteps echoed through the bay as armed men closed in. The girl's eyes glowed brighter. "Your friend just sold you," she said, her voice calm, almost mocking. Ryan raised his blaster. "Yeah. And he's going to regret it." The truth revealed. The docking bay echoed with heavy footsteps. Kane's men spread out in a half circle, rifles aimed at Ryan and the girl. Overhead, the station's metal lights hummed like insects. Ryan's grip tightened on his blaster. "Kane," he called out, his voice steady. "We've been through a lot. Don't do this." From the balcony above, Kane leaned on the railing, smiling like a man already paid. "It's not personal, Ryan, but you know how it is in this part of the galaxy. Money is worth more than loyalty." The girl stood perfectly still beside Ryan, her glowing eyes locked on Kane. "Money?" she said softly. "You think this is about money?" Kane laughed. "You're worth more than money, girl. You're worth power." Her expression didn't change, but Ryan saw her hands curl into fists. "Kane," Ryan said quickly, "what do you mean power?" The mercenary leader smirked. "You really don't know? You're flying halfway across the galaxy with her, and you don't even know what she is?" Ryan didn't take his eyes off Kane. "Then tell me." Kane's smile widened. "She's a key. Her bloodline carries the command code for the Sentinel, the last weapon built by the old alien empires. One shot from it, and an entire planet is ash." Ryan's chest went tight. He turned to the girl. "Is that true?" She didn't look at him, her gaze still locked on Kane. "Yes," she said simply, "but not the way he thinks." "What?" "Do you mean?" Ryan asked. Before she could answer, one of Kane's men stepped forward, a stun cuff in hand. That was his mistake. The girl moved faster than Ryan had ever seen. In one smooth motion, she caught the man's wrist, her eyes blazing. A ripple of force exploded outward, knocking 3 soldiers off their feet. Metal crates slid across the deck, smashing into the walls. Ryan staggered but stayed upright. The girl's voice was like a blade. "The Sentinel does not destroy planets. It decides who rules them." Kane's smile faded. The girl stepped forward, the air around her shimmering like before. "If they get me," she continued, "your worlds will not burn. They will kneel." Ryan finally understood why the enemy would chase her across the stars, why she didn't believe in safety. She wasn't just dangerous. She was a crown waiting to be claimed. The bay doors began to rise again, heavy chains. Clanking, Kane shouted to his men, "Take her!" Ryan fired first, the flash of his blaster lighting the bay. The girl's ripple tore through the room again. Scattering soldiers like leaves in a storm, Ryan grabbed her arm. "We're leaving. Now." She didn't resist this time. Together, they sprinted for the Valkyrie as alarms screamed through the station. The Valkyrie roared away from Outpost 9. Blaster fire streaked past the cockpit as Kane's ships gave chase. Ryan kept his hands tight on the controls, pushing the engines harder than they were built for. Beside him, the girl's glowing eyes stayed fixed on the radar. "They won't stop," she said. "They can't, not while I live." Ryan's voice was steady, but his chest felt heavy. "You're not making this easy." She didn't answer. Instead, she reached for the console, typing in a set of coordinates so fast Ryan barely caught them. "What's that?" he asked. "The Sentinel," she said. "We're ending this." Ryan stared at her. "You want to go to the thing everyone's chasing you for?" Her voice was calm. "If I reach it first, I can lock it forever. No one will ever control it again." Ryan's eyes narrowed. "And what happens if I don't?" "Believe you?" She finally looked at him, her gaze steady. "Then you'll have to kill me before we get there." The coordinates took them to a dead moon, its surface dark and lifeless. In the center of its largest crater stood a massive black spire, its edges glowing faintly with alien light. Even from orbit, Ryan felt its presence, heavy, ancient. Alive, they landed in silence, the only sound the hiss of the ship's cooling engines. The girl stepped out first, her boots sinking into the moon's gray dust. Ryan followed, his blaster in hand. At the base of the spire, a circular door opened as they approached. Inside was a chamber lined with strange symbols, the air humming like a distant storm. In the center stood a tall pillar with a small opening, just large enough for a hand. "This is it," she said, walking toward it. Ryan's voice cut through the air. "Wait." She turned, her expression unreadable. "How do I know you won't use it?" he asked. "You don't," she said simply. "You just have to decide whether to trust me or stop me." Outside, the sound of engines rumbled. Kane's ships had arrived. The chamber shook as the first blast hit the moon's surface. Ryan's heart pounded. If he let her touch that pillar, she could lock the Sentinel forever, or claim it for herself. If he stopped her, Kane's forces would take her and use the weapon anyway. The girl's voice was quiet, but it cut through the chaos. "Your choice, human," she said. "Protect your world or own it." For a long moment, Ryan didn't move. Then the ceiling split with the sound of falling rock as enemy troops stormed in. Ryan made his decision. Blaster fire filled the chamber. The pillar's glow flared bright, and the fate of 2 species was sealed.